All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick, Tayler Kyles here for CLNS Media, outside of Gillette Stadium, right outside of the practice field, where the Patriots just wrapped up day 8 of their 2025 training camp. A bit of a slow practice, a lot of a slow practice.
Very slow.
Didn't even say a bit. No helmets, only for the quarterbacks and linebackers calling in the plays. No real speed in this one. Everyone was kind of just walking around, but we did get a little bit of insight, mainly because Mack Hollins is set to come off the PUP list today. He was out there with the first team. I thought that was noteworthy. We can talk about all that trickle down in just a second. And then we're also going to take your questions here because we needed to fill time because nothing much happened today outside of Foxboro. So throw your questions.
And we miss you also because we miss you.
Yeah, we haven't done any. We haven't Q&A'd. We haven't mailbagged too much here, so we're going to try and do it live from Foxboro. I'll pull up the questions from the YouTube chat, so throw them in there right now. Ask as many as possible, and once we talk about what happened in practice today, we'll answer some of those questions. Noteworthy on attendance, I have it in front of me. Christian Gonzalez, Antonio Gibson, Jelani Tavai, Sidney So, and Garrett Bradbury were absent for practice. I want to get into Bradbury in a second because we saw some similar things along the offensive line, but let's talk about Mack Hollins. He was the top X receiver as soon as the Patriots went out there with it wasn't a true 11 on 11s, but it was 11 on 11 walkthrough session. He was the top X alongside Stephon Diggs and Pop Douglas. So taking that from what you saw today, what does Mack Hollins mean for this team? How do you think he can flush out the rest of the wide receiver room, and whose job is now in jeopardy that Hollins is officially off PUP, and if he does make the team, is going to need to take one of those roster spots?
Yeah, so Mack Hollins obviously missed the entire spring, started on PUP, but this is a guy who we've heard from receivers. Josh McDaniels has been using him as teach tape from their time with the Raiders. I know Pop joked that he saw Hollins running a juke route. He was like, I was kind of surprised to see him. He's a bigger guy, usually on the outside, not really that number 3 where you want to get him in space against a linebacker. But it was pretty obvious from what we had heard that Mack Hollins was going to have a pretty significant role. And now we saw exactly what it was. So like you said, he started off as the top X over Kayshon Boutte, and in the next drill, Kayshon Boutte assumed his usual role as the top X. But we saw Mack Hollins move all over the formation in a way that we haven't seen from any other receivers on this roster. He played at the X. There were some run plays where he was close to the formation as a Z, even lined up in the slot with some personnel with like Kyle Williams and Kendrick Bourne outside. So it was clear they wanted to make sure he was used, maybe not to the maximum because he is still coming off of the PUP list, but the fact that he was using different personnel groupings at different spots pretty much hints that he's going to have a very key role. And if you talk about the skill set, we know Mack Hollins is an excellent blocker, a tone-setting blocker, in fact, which is why I thought he was probably going to live as the Z, because those guys are usually closer to the side where the run is happening. But we also know he is a bigger guy. He had some success along the sideline when he was with the Raiders in formations where he and Devontae Adams were both outside the numbers. And then in the slot, again, a position where you're closer to the line, so you can be used as a bit more of a blocker. So I'm excited to see what his role is maybe going to be in tomorrow's scrimmage. And then once he puts back on the pads, to see how exactly he's utilized and how much he competes against his Patriots cornerback room that, as we know, has gotten thinner, but did get a bit of a boost today with Carlton Davis coming back.
It'll be interesting to see if he's someone who, like Jalen Polk, when he was working back, once he was on the field, he was full go. So it'll be interesting to see how they use Hollins in tomorrow's scrimmage, which will be inside of Gillette Stadium. We'll be here covering it. And from what it sounds like, Greg Bedard wrote this in his notes the other day, it sounds like it's going to be a full padded scrimmage, a little bit higher intensity, and Greg even mentioned that there might be some tackling. So that's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be fascinating to see.
Nasty.
Yeah, that'll be fun because, again, we'll get to see where this team is truly at offensively and defensively with some real hitting and some actual high-intensity scrimmage. So we'll keep an eye out on Hollins there. The one thing I did want to add to the Hollins situation and the wide receiver situation is that him being on the roster, and I was talking with 2 days in a row with John Serenides mentioned, New England Football Journal, was talking to him yesterday about how the wide receiver room, though, could flush out because, as I said before, with Hollins off of PUP, if you want to keep him on the roster, he needs to have one of those 53 roster spots. And Efton Chisum is someone who has been steady in where he is. He hasn't taken the leap into the first team reps like we'd probably want to see from him. I'm sure what fans want to see from him. He spoke today after practice, actually said that he's been watching a lot of Danny Amendola tape. Someone who outside, inside versatility, just like Chisum can have. So with Chisum and then Kendrick Bourne as well. I wonder what Kendrick Bourne's outlook on the roster looks like right now. And I hate saying it because he's a fan favorite. He had his best NFL season in Josh McDaniels' system, and he's someone who really seems like he wants to be here. But with Hollins now in the mix, you're going to keep Kyle Williams. You're obviously going to keep Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, Efton Chisum. I feel like those 4 guys are kind of all fighting for 2 spots. So I know it's still early in camp. We still have a ways to go, but Hollins adds another whole wrinkle because he's someone who they paid him the money in the offseason. He's going to make this football team. I wonder who gets left off.
When you talk about Kendrick Bourne, not only is he's had his time with Drake May as well, but he's mostly been the backup at Z behind Stephon Diggs. Not even just that, great pull from Brian Hines. Kendrick Bourne, I think, has caught 1 or no passes from Drake May in training camp during 11-on-11s, which is pretty significant. I think the only pass he's caught is in 7-on-7. So that's pretty discouraging, right? When you're going back and looking at the tape and saying, all right, who does Drake have chemistry with? Mack Hollins and Kendrick Bourne are pretty much at the same spot in terms of their chemistry with Drake May. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how exactly this battle plays out. I tweeted a few days ago that it seemed pretty obvious. At X, you got Kayshon Boutte and Kyle Williams. At Z, it's been Stephon Diggs and Kendrick Bourne. And in the slot, Demario Douglas and Ethan Chisum seemed like they were going to be the group. With Mack Hollins, I said he was going to make the team in some capacity, whether it was on the active roster or if he had to start off on an injury list. But now that Hollins is back, I just don't really see a world where Kendrick Bourne stays because he doesn't really have a role. Could they keep 7 receivers? Maybe, especially because Efton Chisum and Mack Hollins do bring special teams ability. Obviously, almost everybody in that room has some level of return ability. Outside of Diggs, they just wouldn't really use him in that capacity. But yeah, I think it's more realistic that they keep 6. Tight end room is also shallow too, so we'll see how it plays out. But with Mack Hollins and Efton Chisum having special teams value, Kendrick Bourne not really having that and being a depth receiver just feels like the writing's on the wall for him.
One of the definitely the top position group to watch as training camp and as the summer moves forward. We'll get some more info tomorrow night. We'll get some more info through joint practices with the Commanders and up in Minnesota in the coming weeks. But for now, I do want to also hit on the offensive line room because Garrett Bradbury was not out here once again. And once again, it was Jared Wilson at left guard and it was Ben Brown at the center position. So the one thing that we kind of took away from it yesterday is that they want Jared Wilson to play left guard for this team. He is the starting left guard. The other thing that I thought about a little bit more today is that it also tells me that Garrett Bradbury's not going to be far away and he's going to be fine. Like if they thought Garrett Bradbury, this is just my opinion, kind of what I've pulled from it. If they thought Garrett Bradbury was going to be out for the long term, I feel like they would have a better plan there than just Ben Brown coming up. Because Ben Brown, who has good chemistry with Drake May, was good in a couple spot starts last year, isn't going to be a long-term solution at the center position. If they needed a long-term solution, I think they would have put Jared Wilson in there. I think they would have put Strange at left guard. Tells me that Bradbury's probably on the cusp and should be back sooner rather than later. But Jared Wilson comes out once again, solidified himself in that guard spot. And again, it looks like he is going to be the left tackle for this team week 1 if things happen right now. There's a lot of summer, obviously, to go, but they're clearly trying to get him into that front line.
I will say I'm not sure we can read too much into the Garrett Bradbury situation. One, because I think that they maybe wanted Wes Schweitzer to be another option as a backup center, and obviously he's no longer here. And Ben Brown performed pretty admirably for the Patriots last year as their top backup center. Actually, my roster projection, I had him making the team once Wes Schweitzer was gone. So, and they still did sign Alec Lindstrom of the PC kid. So they now have 3 centers. So I just to that point, I'm not sure when Garrett Bradbury will be back. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world having Ben Brown in the middle, especially if Jared Wilson does bring some stability to that left guard spot. Also, just while we're on the trenches, City So, because he wasn't here, that bumped Leaden Robinson up to the top right guard spot with the backups. The top right guard obviously is Mike Onwenu typically, but today also along the offensive line saw Trey Jacobs continuing to mix in for Morgan Moses, which I gotta say, after yesterday's one-on-ones, I'm very worried actually about the offensive tackle position because right now DeMontre Jacobs is a top swing backup. Then you have Marcus Bryant behind him. I'm not really sure you want either one of those guys having to play more than a game. Where like if somebody went down, you might throw one of those guys in, but then after that game, you are looking at the free agent market and signing who you can. So we talk about the trenches. I feel like the interior, there's a lot of ways that this can work, but like every team in the league, the Patriots tackle depth is not looking great right now. So I'm curious if maybe they add anything to that spot.
Yeah. You said really worried about the tackle position? Is that across the board? Like, are you worried? The depth.
There,
okay, okay, good.
Because Will Campbell's in trenches starter, Morgan Moses is starter. That's the best starting combo they've had in a long time. But as we've seen, Morgan Moses is on a pitch count out here, and I think he's played 14 games the past 2 years. So it's not like this is a guy who we expect to miss a chunk of the season necessarily. But if you're talking about 3 games, if it is Trey Jacobs or Marcus Bryant out there, I would definitely be worried.
Yeah, we will. We'll have to keep an eye out, especially too on how they rotate in these higher intensity training camp practices like tomorrow night, like the joint practices. That'll kind of give us a better idea of where the depth really is. Because yes, there's been some contact, there's been some semblance of, having an understanding of what we're seeing from the offensive line. But, it's going to really come down to these next couple of practices. If you can't tell, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night. Hopefully, I'm not gassing it up too much. But before we get into our Q&A, I do want to just actually one more takeaway from today's practice, which kind of has to do with tomorrow's practice inside the stadium. We were looking at first-team depth, and we kind of had a conversation about it on the Hill where John Giles, Javon Baker, Lan Larison were all getting reps / standing off to the side with the first team while the second team was on a different field with guys like Trevion Henderson and Efton Chisum and Kendrick Bourne, Kyle Williams too. I wonder, and you might have seen some reports out there that, for example, Larison was with the first team where Henderson wasn't. I just want to put a pause on that and kind of put a pin in it and see what the rosters look like tomorrow on the game field. Because my thought was also that could have just been them splitting up their rosters early, getting things ready. And I don't think Lan Larison has the upper hand on Trevion Henderson just yet. I just don't. I don't see that being the case. Henderson is at a successful camp. I saw some chatter about that on the Twitter sphere earlier. But I will say that I don't think those were necessarily your first team, second team divvied up as much as they could have just been rosters for tomorrow.
I think you made a good point that it probably was the scrimmage because Javon Baker and Lan Larison, they have been getting reps with the starters. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. John Giles never reps with the starters. He's pretty much exclusively a practice squad kind of guy. So, yeah, to your point, I think that we could see, usually I feel like they try to make it a little bit more even when they divide these teams. But, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, you got Kyle Williams and Trevion Henderson. That's a hell of a lot of explosiveness. And as I've said, ad nauseum, Efton Chisum looks really good when he's going up against backups, of course. But that's just the opportunities that he's gotten, so we'll find out tomorrow.
Yes, we will. All right, let's hear from our friends over at Prize Picks. We will also do questions after this, so make sure you throw them in the chat. We have a bunch of them already, and the first one is actually about our friend Leaden Robinson, so we'll hit on that in just a second. But first, quick word from our friends at Prize Picks, the best place to get in on the action. Head over there right now. Use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. The Red Sox trade deadline is today. We'll see if the Red Sox make something happen. I don't know if they play tonight, so don't quote me on that. But if they do, get in on the action. Use that code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play $5. They are the sponsor of the show. Please give them some love if you are into this kind of stuff, the daily fantasy aspect of things. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player props, and you have a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And you can run your game all football season long. It starts tonight. Hall of Fame game. Chargers. Who do the Chargers play tonight? Do you remember?
That's a good question.
Hall of Fame. Chargers Lions. Chargers Lions. So you can get in on that today. Use code CLNS. I've said it a couple times now, but $50 instantly. You get $5 after playing your first. Wait.
Also, Chargers Lions could be one of the best Hall of Fame games we've gotten because those are 2 hardcore coaches who, even with the depth players, I'm not sure how much they're going to pull up, so that should be fun.
Yeah, I need to do that read again because I messed it up. Play $5, get $50 instantly in your account when you use code CLNS on the Prize Picks app. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's do questions. Get a bunch of these out of here, or get a bunch of these in before we get out of here, rather. And our first question, Taylor, is from. Please hold.
We don't have to do names. We might fall into it. There was one time I was announcing names during a mailbag, and one of them was kind of inappropriate, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing this anymore."
So the reason I do want to give names, and if there is, I'll be careful. We need to get Amma to try and put them up on screen. So Thomas Levasseur, first question: why haven't we heard much about Leaden Robinson? What does Leaden Robinson's outlook on this depth chart look like? Why haven't we seen Leaden out here as much with that interior?
General rule for training camp, because we get this all the time, like, why haven't I heard about this player, that player? If you don't hear about a player, it's because they either aren't doing anything of note or aren't, actually, no, even if they're performing poorly, you'll hear about them. So, yeah, if you don't hear about a guy, it's either because he's buried on the depth chart or just hasn't made an impression. And Leaden Robinson, I mentioned he was bumped up to the second right guard spot, but that was because of City. So he's been the third string right guard. There has been no rotation. He has been stuck with that third unit. And I will say, once the pads came on, watching him, like, he can still move people, which makes me think that it's got to be a mental thing. Because we saw physically, like, Leaden Robinson can play in this league, and it kind of stinks that if he ends up moving on, like, someone's going to snatch him up. This isn't a guy that you're going to sneak onto the practice squad, I don't think. But, yeah, I just think that maybe this system is one that he's having a harder time getting adjusted to. I'm not sure. But, yeah, the reason you haven't heard about him is because he has been exclusively with the third team outside of today.
Yeah, it's pretty – the answer to that one's pretty similar to what you just said. He hasn't been there. So we'll see if the attrition on the interior eventually bumps him up even more. We'll see how he looks in tomorrow's scrimmage, too. I keep plugging the hell out of that thing, but it'll give us more of a look once we can see those guys. But yeah, right now, not much from Leaden Robinson. Next question is from Flo Rye, and it has to do with what we were just talking about. Why would Hollins be a roster lock just because he's a type of just because he is a type of leader. So yes, I think that has to do with it. The fact that he's worked in Josh McDaniel's system before and some of these other guys have not. I think they want him here. You mentioned the teach tape on Mack Hollins. It's also the fact that they paid him a decent amount of money, and I don't think they just want to bring him in here just to cut him. I think if he wasn't a roster lock off the top, they probably would have kept him on PUP and said, we're going to give you these 4 weeks. We're going to see how the rest of the room plays out, and then we're going to activate you. Where right now, he is going to make the team because they took him off the list, and I think that that's pretty much that. I don't see him coming out here and getting cut, but do you think there's any chance that he would actually be released before training camp starts?
I don't. And I remember when we spoke to Jeremy Springer, because Mack Hollins has had a pretty significant special teams role throughout his career. I asked if he was excited to work with Mack Hollins, and Springer said that he was hoping that Hollins would be too busy with offense to even think about special teams. So when you add that, yes, the leadership, the versatility that he showed today, again, that was very rare from what we've seen. And not even rare, it just hasn't really happened. We've seen Pop, line up outside sometimes, but those are in more stack looks, the way you saw with Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola, Ruby Diggs, and him, and obviously some other players mixed in as well. But yeah, I think the role that he's going to have, the tone-setting mentality, and just the fact he's a guy who has experience in this system, has had success in this system, I would be very surprised if we don't see Mack Hollins on the team, especially considering, like we said, Kendrick Bourne yesterday had a mental error as someone who's also been in the system and is an older veteran, just a smaller margin for error when you're in a camp battle. So, yeah, I would be stunned if we don't see Mack Hollins on this roster.
I am with you. All right, Justin Tech asks, is Trevion Henderson going to have a big role in the offense this year? Mentioned it a bit yesterday. Was involved a lot yesterday, has been involved pretty much throughout the entirety of training camp, and it doesn't seem like the redshirt Josh McDaniels rookie running back thing is going to happen. So what is your outlook for Henderson in this offense this year?
Honestly, I think that running back thing was a Bill thing because we saw it when Bill O'Brien was here as well. I think that was Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen's first year, and Ridley played a little bit, but Vereen didn't really do much of anything. Henderson is going to have a big role in this offense. We've seen him used as a receiver, split out wide, out of the backfield, used in motion. I think he's also going to have a role as a gadget player. He's going to be the third down back, but he's not just going to be stuck in that role. Expect him to be more of like a Rex Burkhead, where he is truly a dual threat who you can use in different ways to manipulate defenses and personnel, whereas James White was really only a third down back pass catcher, and you'd use him on runs sometimes, but really only when you were using tempo and trying to get the defense in some tough spots. So yeah, Trevion Henderson is, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's like top 3 or 4 on the team in receptions.
Okay, that's exciting. Yesterday, you said that you've given an update on Trevion Henderson's speed every single day. Unfortunately, you weren't able to do that today. Running. That's okay. We'll see what happens tomorrow inside the stadium. Here's a good one from Mitch McCann. Can you rank the receivers on play speed from top to bottom? Curious where Hollins or Diggs fall in. So who is the fastest to the slowest in order in the room?
Kyle Williams is the fastest.
Okay.
Probably Javon Baker after him. Demario Douglas. I think his speed is really underrated. People act like he's a 2-level threat. I think he's a 3-level threat and can be when used the right way. So Kyle Williams, Javon, Pop. It's not a whole lot of speed after that, to be totally honest. Maybe Polk, I would say. I don't know. Yeah, Polk.
Polk faster than KB?
I think so.
Yeah.
He's younger, hasn't torn his ACL. I would hope that he's faster than KB. And probably Diggs. I think probably Diggs is probably faster than KB. I think Mack Hollins may be their slowest player.
Yeah.
But also that's not, at least Booty and Mack Hollins fill very similar roles where they're physical. They're not going to be streaking down the field, but they're going to get open at the top of routes and at the catch point.
It's Kyle Williams and everybody else. There's a pretty decent gap there, I would say. Another question here on the wide receivers. Just had it. Now I lost it. Roster lock. Rank the who has a better chance at making the team at the wide receiver position? Javon Baker or Efton Chisum?
Efton Chisum.
Really?
Efton Chisum is a football robot. Actually, funny, he said today you can't be a robot, and I asked him like what the line is between being creative, being a ball player, and running the route the way it's drawn on the page. And he mentioned that against man coverage, Josh McDaniels does give his receivers a little bit more freedom to do what they've got to do. Chisum looks like someone who, if he makes a mistake, it's surprising. Like when Marcellus Dial kind of locked him up and had a pass breakup, I was like, oh, I think that's the first time I've seen somebody defend a pass against Efton Chisum. Javon Baker, when he makes a good play, respectfully, you kind of expect that there's going to be a mistake pretty shortly after because that's what we've seen pretty consistently. And I think that Javon Baker is someone you can sneak potentially onto the practice squad, whereas Efton Chisum just seems like he's a slot player in a Josh McDaniels offense. He's probably going to be playing a lot later in preseason games. I think he's going to be very productive, and I think he's someone that is just going to play too well in the preseason that there's no way you can stash him. And just I think that he's been more consistently productive and just impressed me more personally, so I don't even really think it's
right now you think Chisum makes the team?
Yeah, especially because like Kyle Williams and Kayshawn Boutte have been those consistent guys rotating at
Right.
X. Javon Baker's gotten some snaps, but not enough for me to think he has a serious shot at making the team. And the only reason Efton Chisum hasn't really gotten opportunities is because Demario Douglas, you're hoping he never really comes off the field. And then at that Z spot, you've already got Diggs, you got Hollins, you got Kendrick Bourne. Maybe Efton Chisum bumps Bourne at some point. But yeah, I do think that even though he is buried, I think that he's a more consistent player and should earn a roster spot.
Another question here from Mitch McCann comes in. Interesting after yesterday's comments from Braden Swinson. He asks, curious your thoughts on iron sharpens iron. I kind of started over that. Iron sharpens iron. And is playing a great D-line, does playing a great D-line help an O-line in situations like this week, like training camp here?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, that's like the whole point. You want to play – players will say it all the time. You want to go up against the best competition because that shows you where you're at. And with the Patriots defensive line, I mean, like, it's not even just us. I've seen so many people who cover the league nationally saying that this could be the most athletic defensive line in the NFL. So, absolutely, iron sharpens iron. Like, Braden Swinson and Will Campbell – Braden Swinson himself said that those two know each other better than anybody else on the team because this is going to be their third straight season together. So, yeah, absolutely think there's something to that.
Someone named Donnie Wahlberg in the chat. I don't think it's the real Donnie Wahlberg. Goes, look at the location.
No offense, Donnie.
Who gave RKK a fruit basket to get these guys down here? Not a bad location, I would say. We did pretty well. This is more of a comment that I want to turn into a question. If Morgan Moses goes down, I'd be more comfortable if they went Mike Onwenu to right tackle and then Strange at right guard.
They're not moving Mike Onwenu.
That was going to be my question. They won't move him? They'll keep him there?
No.
Why so stern on it?
The fact that we haven't seen him move once, and the fact that his entire career has been this poor guy having to play multiple positions and never getting a chance to like really settle in to right guard. Yeah, I don't think there's any shot that they move Mike, because then you create a problem in two places, right? Mike Onwenu is going back to a position he won't have played since last season, and whoever the right guard is going to be a backup. So no, I think that creates a bigger problem by kicking Onwenu outside. I understand the question, but this year just feels very different for him.
It feels like they're clearly keeping him at the right guard spot. They're not going to even try and move him around because
he's been vocal about not being able to get comfortable. So yeah, I can't see Josh McDaniels putting him in that spot unless it was an absolute emergency and just every other tackle option fell at the face of the earth.
We have a few more here that we can get to. Frederick asks, how's Jaheim Bell doing? What have you seen from him? I don't think his outlook looks great, especially because they signed 2 tight ends yesterday as well. The depth looks shaky. Doesn't seem like they're going to rely on him, but what have you seen from Bell? Not much.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like every time he catches a pass, it's in the flat. That's not his fault, you know. You're open in the flat, catch the pass. Yeah. I will say, you got to respect Jaheim Bell's work ethic. I asked Austin Hooper about him. He's like, yeah, he's always asking me and Hunter good questions. You always see him working with guys. I know we uploaded a tweet yesterday where Jaheim Bell was working with Mike Vrabel on hand placement as blockers. Like, I love Jaheim Bell's work ethic. I hope that he has a good preseason and earns himself a roster spot, but I just haven't noticed him nearly enough to think he has a shot at making the team right now.
And I know you're throwing these questions up. I'm going to the most recent one because it has to do with what we were just talking about along the offensive line. But how much of Campbell's struggles so far, mainly yesterday was the big day he struggled, how much of it do you think is the D-line just being a very good defensive line versus the rookie just taking his licks and not being maybe NFL ready week 1 just yet?
I mean, he's a left tackle. He's going to be going up against the other team's best pass rusher every week. So, I frankly don't care what the competition is that he's going up against. He should be performing better on paper.
Right.
But at the same time, we knew that Will Campbell was probably going to have some issues in pass protection. If you go back to his college tape, you see it. Anytime he faced NFL competition, he wasn't shutting them down. There was usually 1 or 2 losses that were like egregiously bad. He had it against Landon Jackson, who's now with the Buffalo Bills. You saw with R. Mason Thomas, who's an emerging edge rusher in college. So I'm not really surprised that he's struggling. I think that there's a level of, and I got John Serenides will really help with this, but it gets to the point where sometimes he's working so hard to protect the edge and get to guys that he ends up turning his hips and allowing guys to beat him inside, which is the really glaring issue, because if you get beat inside, there's really nowhere for the quarterback to go. Obviously, a guy like Drake May can maybe get out of the pocket, but those are very dangerous plays, because if Drake May's mid-throw and Will Campbell just let somebody beat him inside and there's no one to help out, Drake May's going to maybe let that ball go, but he's going to get cut in half. So I think, yes, it has to do with the level of competition, but it's also a rookie who did have some pass protection struggles against some of the better competition he faced in college, now going up against what's going to be the best of the best every week. So there's going to be an adjustment period. I still think he's a plus run blocker, but in pass pro, I do think that early on in the season, especially the guys facing off against Max Crosby and Chop Robinson in the first 2 weeks, that's not going to be easy. So just brace yourself for some early rookie struggles, but you do hope that as he gets a little bit more up to speed for the game, because that's one element of it, right? We always talk about it with quarterbacks. Sometimes times with receivers, but offensive linemen have to adjust to the speed of the game as well. So, yeah, there's going to be a transition period. Don't panic, but also don't expect the guy to just be shutting down the best every week.
Our boy Courtney, talking smack in the chat a little bit, asks you, Taylor, do you feel better or worse about that win total prediction after the first 8
I remember,
days of
honestly,
camp?
once the first time we got out here, I started to kind of walk it back because Leaden Robinson wasn't really part of it. That was a huge part of the offensive line that I thought. Jared Wilson playing obviously makes it feel a little bit better, but honestly, there's a level of competition. If we're like injuries aside, because we don't know what some people's statuses are, like I think Christian Gonzalez is supposed to be back for week 1, so that should help. But the fact that it has been back and forth, Drake May making great decisions, protecting the football, this defense being hyper competitive and very talented, I still think that I think the minimum should be 10 wins because this is going to be a disciplined team, one that, again, protects the football, doesn't make egregious mistakes, doesn't let teams just run up the score on them. I do think they should get at least 10. 13 definitely could be tough, especially because the Raiders look like they're going to be really good. Right. I know Cam Ward's looking good for the Titans, so there are even some games earlier on that I'm starting to think could be more difficult than I did at the time.
Closer to a coin flip type of game.
Absolutely, but I still think that 10 wins should be the expectation.
I think so. I agree with you on 10 wins when we did it, and I know we talked about it. The 13 wins was more of a these are games they should win versus I think this is going to happen. But I'm more of like the 8-win minimum, 11-win maximum. They should be there. If they win less than 8 games, I think there's a problem. I think if they get to 8, you're building. You've won double what you won the year before, and you can go from there. Still be a bit of a disappointment considering year 2 of Drake May, you bring in an influx of talent, what have you. But I'm with you. I think that I don't think much has changed since the offseason. It's kind of been
more context.
Yeah, you have more context, but it's kind of been what we'd expect, I would think. So,
fair question.
Yeah, good question. Donnie asks, Taylor/Mike, what's your unbiased assessment of Cole Strange so far? There haven't been a ton of broadcasts at camp, so I'm in the dark. What have you seen from Strange? Do you think it's I mean, obviously, it's not a good thing that he was moved off the left guard spot, but is he still going to make the team? What do you think of Strange right now?
I mean, honestly, whenever I've been looking, I'm usually focused on the younger guys like a Will Campbell or a Jared Wilson. So I've been locked in on Cole Strange. I will say, some of the run games that I've seen, it does look like he's gotten pushed back at times. He had the high snap, I believe, yesterday, but I don't think the team wants him to play center. I think that's just kind of a product of what's going on right now. So again, I don't want to go too deep into Cole Strange because I haven't really been locked in on him. We haven't been out here for very long. But the fact that Jared Wilson's over him and the fact that Caden Wallace is very much in the mix does not seem great for his roster chances.
We will end it on this. One more question here. It is on the defensive side of the ball, which we actually haven't answered a single question about the defense. I don't think people care. I shouldn't say people don't care. I think people are a lot less worried about the defense than this offense, and rightfully so, but it's about rookie Craig Woodson. I almost just said Queg Woodson.
Queg Woodson.
Woodson. How much has Craig Woodson been repping with the first team, and what kind of role do you see him playing in this defense this year?
It seems like he's been used a lot in the box. Like, I've seen him in man coverage at times, close to the line of scrimmage, and that safety room, there's a heavy rotation. You see Marcus Epps out there, Jalen Hawkins, so it's going to be tough to see when exactly he gets starting reps. Like, I thought he might have a bigger role, but it seems like they really do like rotating these guys through once you get past Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, who are obviously going to be at the top. But I think this year he probably will have a role where he lines up close to the line of scrimmage, but I also think it's going to be dependent on who's around him. If it's him and Jalen Hawkins and Marcus Epps, yeah, I think that Craig Woodson's probably going to be more in the box. If it's Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, I could see Woodson as more of a free safety, but I can't wait for preseason when we really get to see what these packages look like, how guys are deployed. So I think he's going to have a significant role, but still TBD because right now they're like 5 deep in that room, and I'm not even talking about Del Pettis.
I was just going to say a cerebral player who was also taking reps at the personal protector position on the punt team ahead of Del Pettis, so you wonder what that does for Pettis' stance on the roster. But yeah, Woodson, I'm excited to see what he can do over joint practices and as the preseason begins. Any other thoughts from today? I know we didn't get much, but what are you looking for? You know what? I should say this. 2 things you're looking forward to tomorrow's in-stadium practice.
I want to see, like Drake May mentioned, how he's protected the football, but also he's not afraid to go downfield. I'm going to be interested to see what that balance is like tomorrow because he is very good at taking calculated risks. And if it isn't pads, just seeing if the trenches are as competitive as we've seen, where it seems like it's been pretty back and forth to the naked eye. But then when we get a different view, like we get to be in the press box, so to see a little bit more rather than like looking literally across that field to try to figure out what's going on in the trenches. It's very difficult. So I'm looking to see Drake May and also how the trenches shapes up.
Should be a fun one. Patriots in the stadium tomorrow night, 6 o'clock for an in-stadium scrimmage-style practice. We'll be here for CLNS, so make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass. Also, check out our Discord as well, clnsmedia.com/Discord. You can go over there, join in on the fun. We're going to be doing more work over there this year, trying to build up that community. And I will say it, I'll tease it out, crossover episode tomorrow night after practice. Myself, Taylor, and Alex and Brian on Pat's Beat together for one show following the in-stadium scrimmage. So keep it here on Patriots Press Pass. Rate, review, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace out, everyone.